I gave my whole life to my family, and one evening, they threw me out like I was nothing. My own son stood there and said nothing. You know, I never thought the day would come when I'd have no place to call my home. For years, I cooked, cleaned, prayed, and smiled for my family. Every morning, I woke up early to make breakfast, not for myself, but for them. My son used to say, "Mother, you are the heart of this house." But hearts, they grow old, don't they? And when they stop beating fast enough, people forget their rhythm. It all started so quietly. My daughter-in-law began complaining about small things. The way I used the kitchen too long, how I left lights on, how I used too much electricity. She said the bills were too high because of me. I didn't argue. I just smiled and said, "I'll be careful next time." But next time never mattered. Every day, there was something new. That I sat too long near the window. That I made the living room smell like medicine. That I used too much soap, too much water, too much time, too much space. One evening, she shouted. Her voice was sharp. It cut through my chest like a knife. She said, "You're a burden. You don't belong here anymore." I looked at my son. He was right there, sitting quietly on the sofa. I waited for him to speak, to stand up, to say something. But he didn't. He just lowered his eyes. And in that silence, my whole world broke apart. She took my small suitcase from my room and threw it near the door.
"Go," she said.
"If you want to live, find another place. You've lived enough here." I still remember my hands trembling as I held that old bag. My clothes, my prayer mat, my few medicines, and a photo of my late husband. That's all I had left. I wanted to say something to my son. Just one word, "Why?" But my voice didn't come out. Only tears did. He didn't look up once. I stepped out of the house, barefoot. It was raining a little, and I could feel the cold drops mixing with my tears. I kept walking, not knowing where to go. I went to the small park where I used to take my grandson years ago. The same bench was still there, but this time I sat alone. I watched the house lights from far away, and I told myself, maybe they'll call me back. Maybe this is just anger. But they didn't. The night grew darker. I whispered to the sky, if a mother's love becomes too much to bear, then maybe it's better to love from far away. Now I live in a small room. One window, one bed, one little lamp. No arguments here, no shouting. Just silence. Sometimes, I still imagine hearing my grandson's laughter, or my son's voice saying, "Ma, dinner is ready." But then I open my eyes, and there's nothing. Just the ticking of the clock, and the sound of my own heart remembering. You know what hurts the most? Not that they threw me out, but that I raised a son who couldn't say a single word to stop it. Still, I pray for them, because that's what mothers do. Even when the world throws them away, their hearts never learn how to stop loving. You know, when I first came to this little room, it felt empty. Too quiet. Too still. The silence used to scare me. I missed the noise, the sound of doors closing, plates clattering, footsteps in the hallway. Even the arguments, they reminded me I wasn't alone. But slowly, this silence became my friend. It started listening to me when no one else did. Every morning, I sit by this window with my cup of tea, and I talk to the sunlight as if it's my old companion. I tell it everything, my pain, my prayers, my memories. Sometimes I laugh, remembering the silly moments. How my grandson used to hide behind the curtain. How my son would come home tired but smile when I served him food. How my husband would say, "You talk too much, woman," and yet listen to every word. Those memories, they're all I have now. They live with me, quietly, kindly. One day, a little girl from the next street came to see me. She said, "Grandma, my mother told me you live alone. Can I sit with you?" Her name was Noor. Such a bright child. Her eyes full of curiosity. She brought me flowers she picked from the roadside. Tiny wildflowers, no scent, no shape, but full of life. From that day on, she visited me every evening. We sat together, talked, laughed. And I started teaching her small things, how to sew, how to pray, how to listen. She reminded me that love doesn't always come from blood. Sometimes it finds you in strangers. A few weeks later, I heard a knock on my door. When I opened it, my son stood there. He looked older, weaker somehow. Behind him, his wife stood quietly. He said, "Mother, I came to see you." My heart trembled. I didn't know what to say. For a moment, I wanted to run into his arms. But then I remembered that night. The rain, the silence, the door closing behind me. He sat down, looked around the room, and said, "Are you happy here?" I smiled and said, "Yes, I am. I have peace here. Something I didn't have before." He lowered his head, and for the first time I saw tears in his eyes. He whispered,
"I'm sorry, Ma."
I didn't say, "It's okay." Because it wasn't. But I held his hand and said, "Just promise me one thing. Never let your child see what you did to your mother.
Break the chain.
Don't pass the pain." He nodded. His wife said nothing. Maybe guilt was heavier than words. They left after a while. And I stood by the door, watching them walk away.
Part of me wanted them to stay.
But another part knew some distances are needed for peace. Since that day, I don't wait for anyone. I just live. I water my small plants, feed the birds that sit on the windowsill, and talk to the wind. Sometimes I still cry, but not out of pain anymore. Now it's because I finally understand life.
People change.
Love fades. Homes break. But a mother's heart, it never runs out of forgiveness. If you ask me what I've learned after losing everything, I'd say this. Peace is not found in big houses, but in small hearts that still know how to love. And even if the world forgets you, don't forget yourself. Because when everyone leaves, your soul, your memories, and your kindness will still be your true home. I may have lost my house, but I found my peace.